I want to talk about this idea of digital is about markets. If we think about the evolution of the internet over the last 20 years, we repeatedly see certain points in time when entirely new breakout innovation came up, and we repeatedly see that this innovation happened because a certain market variable got digitized for the first time. So I want to go on a limb here and say that new forms of digitization fundamentally drive new market creation, and this is the basic formula of all digital innovation on the internet. In the late 90s, we started by digitizing consumption. Before a company like Amazon came up, we used to go to a store, we used to buy something, and we used to pay for that with money, but also with data. And that data, unfortunately, was just captured on a sales receipt and passed back to us. The company would never do anything with that data. The only thing that Amazon did, which was fundamentally different and fundamentally changed the rules of the game, was that it took this data from the sales receipt and started using this data. And because of that, because Amazon digitized consumption data, it was able to create entirely new markets. Amazon was able to create recommendations like people who bought this also bought this, which was essentially a new market where other people's behavior could change your buying behavior. So it was an entirely new market of consumption that Amazon created because Amazon digitized consumption data. We started seeing that becoming the norm as e-commerce expanded. Around 2004, the next important change happened, which unleashed a whole new wave of innovation. Prior to 2004, identity was not digitized on the internet. The internet was a place for anonymous chat rooms. It was a place where you could read the news, you could buy goods, but nobody really knew who you were. Facebook changed all of that when it insisted that you had to provide your university email address or your corporate email address in order to get a Facebook account. That continued for the next 4 years. In 2008, Facebook opened this out as Facebook Connect. That was a pivotal moment because with Facebook Connect, for the first time, identity was digitized on the internet. And a whole range of new markets that required real-time identification, that required real identification of a person, got opened up around that time, and we collectively call those markets as the sharing economy. Companies like Airbnb would not have been possible if Facebook had not opened up Facebook Connect, because the fundamental element that enables trust creation for a new user coming on Airbnb, or did back then before Airbnb had any data of its own, was Facebook Connect. Digitization of identity unleashed a whole new range of innovation, a whole new set of business models, all centered around creating new markets where identity was important. Around this time, this was 2008, around 2006, Google bought a company called Keyhole, which was working on mapping the world, and eventually that became Google Maps. Around the same time, in 2007, Apple launched the iPhone, and 3G connectivity came up. The combination of rich mapping data, a computer in your pocket connected to 3G connectivity, helped us to digitize location for the first time. And this was when we started seeing the rise of location-based services coming in for the first time, because location was now digitized through a combination of the fact that we had great mapping data, we had a computer in our pocket, and we had connectivity to the internet at all times. And that is why Uber came up, because before Uber, before mapping, before 3G, and before the iPhone, it was not possible for us to digitize a moving vehicle. Hence, a business model like Uber could not have happened. That is when Foursquare came up, and a lot of other location-based services came up as well. So what we see repeatedly is that innovation is not accidental. Innovation is not people sitting in a room coming up with new ideas. Innovation is looking at what are the technological forces that are driving digitization and creating a business model that benefits from this new range of digitization. What happened next was we started moving from computer-based or web-based services to mobile-based services, and we started digitizing more and more aspects of our economy. Around this time, LinkedIn was becoming bigger, so our professional lives were getting digitized as well. And around this time, we started seeing the rise of freelancing platforms. Fundamentally, all freelancing platforms are built on digitizing reputation. Once you digitize the reputation of a worker, you're able to better advise a client on what the worker is good for and what he should be hired for. And that is why we now today see the creation of on-demand labor markets, on-demand freelancer markets, because companies successfully digitized reputation. Unlike identity, which is consistent across many different use cases, and hence Facebook can open out identity and you can apply it in many different scenarios, reputation is very context specific. And so you see companies building very narrow niche marketplaces with reputation that is specific to a particular industry. Whether it's the reputation of a service provider, of a system integrator, it's very specific to a particular industry. And today we're now moving into new parts of the economy where new things are getting digitized. For example, we are now seeing machine performance get digitized. The widespread proliferation of sensors, coupled with improvements in AI and machine learning, have helped us digitize machine performance. And companies like GE, Siemens, ABB, Rockwell, all of these companies are creating large markets of these machines interacting with each other. This is what we commonly think of as the Internet of Things as well. And all of this is based on digitization of machine performance. If you can digitize machine performance, you can digitize an entire shop floor. You can eventually digitize an entire supply chain, because a supply chain is a combination of machines and people emitting data. And so today we are at a point where traditional parts of the economy, because of digitization of machine performance, are also moving towards new market creation. And the final thing that's happened over the last 3 to 4 years is that we've moved to a point where we now digitize business processes as well. And the reason this happened was that the cloud has always been there. The consumer cloud was always there, and especially since the launch of the iPhone, when apps could be stored on the cloud, we've seen the power of the consumer cloud. But business processes had still not moved to the cloud. It took another 6 to 7 years. Only in the last 2 to 3 years have we seen most traditional companies start to move their business processes from traditional IT systems to the cloud. The reason this is so powerful is not that you save costs when you move to the cloud, but that when you move to the cloud, you unlock innovation in 2 important ways. First, you have data that is constantly being streamed to the cloud, and so you are now digitizing your entire workflow, your business process, and that is why we are now seeing new markets being created in industries like healthcare, which have relied on traditional IT systems and are now moving to the cloud. But the second thing that's important is that the shift to the enterprise cloud allows us to benefit from developer ecosystems who can come in and create new applications around all of this data, and that enables even more innovation. So again, every time there is a shift in technology leading to a new form of digitization, we have new markets coming up.